here talking to Eliza Hittman, the writer-director of Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which actually got a prize at Sundance for neorealism, which for some reason amuses me. It's totally appropriate, but I don't know why that amuses me. And then Silver Bear at Berlin, which is where we were all hanging out at the premiere there. And recently, the New York Film Critics, oh my God, Sidney, Best Actress of the Year from the New York Film Critics. Now, did you see that coming?
No, but it's really exciting.
And Best Screenplay also, which is great. And also Best Screenplay from the National Society of Film Critics. And I just want everyone to know, if you look up people's reviews on Metacritic, this one's right at the top, 91 on Metacritic, which is hard to get. It's hard to get into the 80s, much less 91. So if we go back to the very beginning, Sidney, you're a musician. You live in Buffalo. How, from your perspective, how did this approach come to you on maybe working on a movie?
That looks like a positive.
If it's positive, is there any way it could be negative?
No. A positive is always a positive.
So, it was like a super bizarre thing to just show up in my life. I briefly met Eliza and her partner Scott when they were working on a film in Buffalo when I was a teenager. And so I got an email when I was 20 from them asking me to audition for this film. And at first I just said no right away, because I just immediately was like, oh, well, I'm not an actor. It's just not what I do, or that I was too busy with my job or whatever. And so then Scott, after discussing it with me for a bit and twisting my arm a little, convinced me to talk to Eliza over Skype. And, I just remember instantly really liking Eliza. She was just easy to talk to. And she told me a bit about the story, and I read the script, and the script was just so amazing. I was I wasn't expecting to see a story about abortion and about this young woman that felt honest and that didn't feel, I don't know, fake. And I just immediately wanted to, I don't know, be a part of something like that. And, I was terrified to jump into this whole new world to do something that I didn't even know if I could do, but it was just one of those things that I felt I had to do.
I'm glad you did. I'm very glad you did. So Eliza, you were working on this for a really long time, and you had to even put it. What took so long? What there was hesitancy about funding such a movie. What was the hesitancy?
I think there were a lot of things that I came up against at that moment. I started writing it in 2013. I went back and forth between a UK treatment of the film and a Pennsylvania version. I had a child. I took on a job as a professor. And I think, one of the big factors was it felt hard to make something that took place in another state. At that moment where I was so sort of trapped at home.
You live in Brooklyn.
I live in Brooklyn. I'm used to making movies in my backyard, essentially, in my mother's basement, if I'm being honest. I shot a short in my mom's basement. It felt like love was shot a lot in my mom's basement. So what I do is very close to home, and somehow it felt like I wanted the canvas for this film to be larger. And it felt more ambitious. And it's true, I did start pitching the film, and there wasn't a lot of awareness at that time about the conversation around access and how important it is, and how complicated it is to just even get to an abortion clinic. So I think that initially when I started talking about the film, we had Obama as president, and there was just a different energy. And every time I said, I want to make this movie about how hard it is to get an abortion, people would look at me and say, that sounds like a documentary. And I'd say, really? Like, why? So yeah, I put it aside. And then when I premiered Beach Rats at Sundance and Trump was inaugurated, I felt like maybe now people will be a little more aware, what's really going on since he put, abortion access like basically on a butcher block.
So I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Manhattan. And what the movie did for me was to throw me back to what it felt like to be a young woman on the street in New York. And I was a native. I knew the rules. I knew which sides of the street to walk on. You had to be very aware of that kind of thing. But it really, I think the movie's also not only about abortion access, but about the vulnerability of being a young woman in a man's world. Mm-hmm. Sidney, what do you think about that?
You girls know where you're going?
What?
Do you know where you're going?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll text you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that, they're kind of faced with all these obstacles along the way that have to do with the interactions they have with other men, whether it be Autumn's stepdad or her manager, or, the men on the streets of New York or wherever they may be. Like, there's always sort of that feeling of like claustrophobia, or just feeling, I don't know, always on alert.
I think it's a profound portrait of that. And I think the way that you get it so well, Eliza, has to do with placing the camera and the storytelling as a point of view that's mm-hmm. always from them. Explain that strategy.
Yeah, I think it was important for me that all of these spaces that you're talking about felt on some subtle level unsafe. Like every space, like her home, that, it's a space where this stepfather, is a wedge between her relationship with her mother. And, it's not until she gets to this clinic, that she's really in a safe space that is, as you're talking about, free from sort of male figures. And in order to really immerse the audience in the character's point of view, I explore subjectivity in a way that I think and I hope is unique to me and my work as a filmmaker. So for me, it's about really aligning the audience with the character's point of view, seeing from her point of view, seeing her reaction, and trying to heighten the world around her subtly through close-ups and through perspective.
So you had to talk Focus Features, which came on board, which is a pretty big distribution company. You had to talk them into hiring this unknown girl from Buffalo, right?
I didn't. They came on actually as we were sort of moving into production. So they weren't involved.
They were fine. You didn't have to talk anyone into it.
They weren't involved with the casting decision.
Because I remember you telling me about a fun kind of audition that you put Sidney through in New York. Sidney, what was that like? What kind of hoops did she make you jump through?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I just, showed up to Eliza's apartment and she was there with Helene, the DP, and
Luvart, right?
Yes. Yeah. Who was, I just remember, was such an eccentric person to be around. And she was such a character, but like I just loved it. Like as soon as I walked in, like there was definitely an energy between like Eliza and Helen, and I was already into it. But I remember like they had me like go around the city and do things like using a subway card or like eating, like they filmed me eating in a bakery, and I was feeling so weird just like having a camera on me while I ate. It was like a really interesting experience. And then I like read some scenes with Eliza in her office, and yeah, the whole thing just felt so like, I don't know, like it was definitely, I don't think like I'll probably ever have an audition experience like it again. And I think it was really cool.
So Eliza, what were you up to there?
I don't think that the like audition space is like a particularly creative or inspiring environment for actors or directors to just sit in these little rooms and like stare at people essentially. And I think as a director, like, auditioning is work, it's active, and it's hands-on in a way. And so I just set out trying to stage small moments from the film in the city with Sidney and with my DP. It started the moment Sidney arrived in New York. The first time we really met face to face, we went right down to the train station, and I said, try and buy a Metro card, try and, swipe it too fast, swipe it too slow, and just shaping these little moments, of her trying to navigate New York for the first time. And in essence, like, she hadn't spent a lot of time in the city. She does have family here, but, it's not the second home, I don't think. We wanted to really, see the performance in context.
Let's talk about the script a little bit. Let's talk about, I understand that you write a very tight, very controlled, minimal script, and then you sort of move away and expand it a little bit. Is that fair to say?
I don't know if I expand it so much. I don't improvise. It is minimal. It is very taut. But I think that I like to shoot human beings thinking and breathing on screen. It's not about the moment in the script in this precise way, that you want to bring life and human, real human beings in front of a camera. And so I take time and I let things breathe on set.
You're often responding to things without talking, basically, Sidney. So that there's a lot of your face reacting, but you're also very contained. It's not like you're emoting. You're not showing. There's a lot that we see behind you, but you're not. It's not expositional. And then there's the scene in the clinic where you break down. Could you walk me, both of you, either one of you first or the other, walk me through how you got there and how it felt to break down like that?
It's okay. It's just a couple more questions, all right? Your partner has made you have sex when you didn't want to. Never, rarely, sometimes, always. It's okay.
I mean, we knew it was an important scene, obviously, from the beginning of the process. And I think I tried to be strategic about when we shot it. It's not something you want to let a producer and AD try and schedule like the first week of the shoot. You have to build to that place emotionally and build trust and build confidence. And I knew I wanted to do it, in a real Planned Parenthood with a real social worker. And I spent a lot of time workshopping the scene, trying to marry it between what the social worker really does in a counseling session with the style of writing, which is a little stripped down, and I wanted, Sidney to feel like she's arrived in this safe space after this long journey that, has been so fraught. I think from like a logistical perspective, I tried to sort of make sure that Sidney had time away from the crew and the chaos before shooting. So she had an office she was sitting in for a few hours before we shot. And I guess the more just logistics, it's 16 millimeters. So I wrote the scene to be an entire length of film. And that was a goal. So there were all these kind of stakes.
12 minutes? Is that how long? Yeah. So, all right. From how did you approach it, Sidney?
Yeah, I don't have a very fun answer. I just really tapped into my most vulnerable places and, my own experiences. And it felt like an environment that I can harness those emotions and let them just kind of be there.
It was a real woman, right? That you had brought in.
Two real women. Yeah, she's a real social worker. And I think, right before we shot the scene, one thing that I remember saying to Sidney was, because it was long, I told her that, she could start answering the beginning of the questions in the beginning of the scene about her general medical history, just as herself, not worry about the character's answers. And that sort of started us on track in a way from a more personal place rather than trying to remember someone else's fake medical history.
Did you have to do it over and over again, Sidney?
Just like a few times. It was like three takes, I think.
Which take did you use?
Number one.
Oh, it's such a beautiful, beautiful piece of acting. It really is remarkable. I get teary-eyed actually thinking about it. And there's just, I hate to do this in front of you, Sidney, but I'm asking Eliza, what was it? You must have auditioned a number of young women, professionals. What was it that made you turn to Sidney and feel like she could do this?
Yeah, I mean, I could share with you, Sidney's audition, and you'd see that the first time we put a camera on her, she was a completely competent actor. She was very, very impressive what she was able to do from the beginning, and yet it still was so real and so raw. I didn't teach Sidney how to act. Sidney is an actor.
Well, you could also see it in her music too. I looked at some of your videos. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there's so much there. I think it's, I think that I didn't want the character to feel like a wispy ingenue. Like Sidney has a vulnerability and a strength. And we needed to see both of those sides of the character at all times.
Yeah. You're afraid for her. You're really scared for her. There's a whole interaction that I loved with that guy who was on the train and who you continue to see in the city. And you never know which way that's going to turn. Is he going to turn out to be a good guy who's just, playing along with being attracted to the girl, or is he going to turn out to be a bad guy? We don't really know. That was good. How you did that. So go ahead.
In those gray zones, he's neither good nor bad. He's not Prince Charming, nor is he gonna steal their money. but he wants
Not going to save them.
no, he wants something.
Hmm. Yeah, that's how it works. So the rapport with Talia Ryder is terrific as well. So you did a regular casting process for her. She was a theater actress,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you two got to meet, and what did you find out about each other?
Yeah, I mean, when we first met, we found out that we were both from here in Buffalo, and that was, an exciting piece of information because it felt something like I already kind of felt like, connected to her in at least that small little way. So that was good, like little foundational commonality. But I really love Talia. She's a really great person to work with. She's talented, and I really got along with her very quickly, and I think we started developing a friendship very fast. We would hang out offset, and she was with me like almost every moment of the day, every day on set, and she became my person to talk to in between scenes and when everything was chaotic and there's a lot of commotion, and she just really became someone for me to lean on, and she was just fantastic.
What was the most difficult thing for you on this project during the filming?
Probably just dealing with like the total fear of like not knowing of whether or not I was doing acting right. There were times where I felt like I wasn't sure if I belonged there or not. So, struggling with that. But, I think it's totally normal, when you're trying new things. And I think that if something doesn't scare you at least a little bit, that maybe it's, not like, it's not going to be exciting. So I think, it was worth it.
And how did Sidney surprise you, Eliza?
I think with her sort of consistent sincerity throughout her performance, like there was just nothing that felt false. And it was not an easy shoot. They never are. And to put the weight of a movie on someone's shoulders who had never done it before, wasn't sure she wanted to do it, it was a lot. And, she got through it. And I remember the last take that we shot of the film in Port Authority was like her dragging the suitcase down an escalator looking for Skylar. And then we called cut, and there was this like smile across her face as everyone cheered for her. Like she made it to the finish line. It was a hard job. It was an emotional role. It's not easy to be number one on the call sheet with everybody looking at you for 27 days.
No, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
So you went back to Buffalo, and I'm curious how your music career is going, and how is your acting career going? I know the pandemic must have put a little bit of a crimp in your sales there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I spent a lot of time self-taping and stuff, and I did land a new role that I'm really looking forward to shooting. It's still up in the air about when we're going to start because of COVID, but I'm really excited about that.
Can you say what it is?
It's called My Twin is Dead by Matthew Condart. And yeah, it's I think it's gonna be cool. I really like the script. I really enjoyed talking with the director. I think it's gonna be a fun project. But yeah, and then as for music, there's not really too much you can do right now with everything. Like pretty much, we did a lot of press for the film, and then I came home and everyone went into lockdown. And so, I've recorded a little bit of music, but that's pretty much all. That's the extent of what we can really do.
And what are you up to, Eliza? You were going to work on this matriarch who was dying or something.
Yeah, and I have this project that's like just a very confrontational look at aging and dying. And I've been writing that for a year. I wrote a pilot, and I work as a professor at Pratt Institute. So I also taught full-time January to January, and have been promoting this film for a year. So it's been a good run, I would say. And we're grateful for support from people like you, Anne. So thank you.
No, I love this movie. So, Focus opened it in March, briefly, and then it went on to VOD. Where can people see the movie now?
I think it's across most HBO Max. It's on HBO Max. I think and other streaming platforms.
Good. People are catching up with it, and it's just a really important movie. So the whole issue of the question of how abortion is playing out. You're getting involved in some outreach, I understand. Even if we now have a new president and a new vice president, that doesn't mean that abortion rights are not very fragile at this time, given the Supreme Court. What's your sense of how that's playing out?
Yeah, we spent a year working with regional branches of Planned Parenthood, connecting with teen groups and talking about the issues at the core of the film. And we were lucky enough to get a grant from CineReach to help sponsor their watch parties. And it was a really sort of beautiful way, meaningful way to spend a good portion of this pandemic doing our version of outreach and activism. And so I think, it's a nice feeling to have a film that sort of can reach an international art house audience, can tap into Hollywood in a way, and also be able to do this kind of, work.
It's just heartbreaking the way this character is basically abandoned by society and her parents. And I mean, she's not able to go to her parents. She has to go on her own to New York. And that's the truth for a lot of people in a lot of places right now. And the Supreme Court isn't heading in a good direction either.
No, and obviously recently they decided that you can't get the abortion pill by mail. So that was a big loss, I would say. And we'll see, where things go. But, we were happy to be part of the fight.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
You know?